You walk into a movie theater already knowing exactly what you're going to do. You're hungry, sure, but you're also trying to be reasonable. You tell yourself you don't need to go overboard. You don't need the massive bucket. You don't need the calories, and you definitely don't need to spend an insane amount of money on popcorn. You're just going to get the smallest one and enjoy the movie. You reach the counter and look up at the menu. The small popcorn is $6. That already feels painful, but you shrug it off. It's the movies. Everything is overpriced. You accept it. Then your eyes move. On the far right is the large popcorn, the absurd one, the bucket that could feed a small family. That one costs $8. $8 feels like a lot for popcorn, but what really messes with your head is the option sitting quietly in between. The medium popcorn is $7.50, and without realizing it, your brain stops thinking about hunger and starts doing math. Why would anyone buy the medium? 50 cents more gets you way more popcorn. Suddenly, buying the medium feels stupid. Buying the small feels like you're cheating yourself. The large starts to feel logical, responsible even, so you buy the large. You walk away feeling smart, like you beat the system, like you just made a clever, value-based decision. But here's the truth you don't notice in that moment. You walked in planning to spend $6, and you walked out spending $8. You didn't change your mind because you needed more popcorn. You changed your mind because the environment quietly pushed you there. That medium popcorn was never meant to be sold. It exists for one reason only, to make you spend more. This isn't an accident. This isn't coincidence. This is behavioral design. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. Most people think overspending happens because of impulse or lack of discipline. They think, I just need more self-control, or I need to be better with money. But that explanation doesn't match reality, because the people who fall for this aren't reckless. They're careful. They budget. They compare prices. They think things through. And that's exactly why this works. The human brain is terrible at judging value in isolation. We don't know what things are worth on their own. We only know how they compare to other things sitting next to them. If I handed you a random mechanical part and asked how much it costs, you'd guess $50, $500. You'd have no idea. There's no internal price sensor in your brain. So instead, your brain looks sideways. It looks for reference points. It asks, compared to what? Marketing teams understand this better than we do. They know that if they present a product by itself, you might decide it's too expensive and walk away. That's risky. But if they surround it with carefully chosen alternatives, they can quietly guide your decision without ever telling you what to do. This is why you're rarely offered two options. Two options force a real choice. Three options let them control the comparison. One option is designed to feel insufficient. One is designed to feel awkward and overpriced. And one is designed to feel like the obvious winner. Your brain doesn't choose what it wants. It chooses what feels least stupid. There's a name for this tactic in behavioral economics. It's called asymmetric dominance. One option is deliberately worse in a very specific way, so that another option looks dramatically better by comparison. The worse option isn't there to be chosen. It's there to push you. In the popcorn example, the theater doesn't care about the medium. They don't expect you to buy it. The medium's job is to kill the small. Without the medium, you'd compare $6 to $8 and probably save the $2. With the medium sitting there at $7.50, your brain stops comparing small versus large and starts comparing medium versus large. The large dominates the medium so hard that it feels irresponsible not to upgrade. This same logic shows up in coffee shops. The small is barely cheaper than the medium. The medium is awkwardly priced. The large is only slightly more. You don't ask yourself how much coffee you actually want. You ask yourself why you'd pay almost the same price for less. So you size up again and again and again. A few cents here, a dollar there, every day, all year. Individually, none of it matters. Collectively, it's devastating. Now let's zoom out, because this isn't just happening with snacks and apps. It's happening with the biggest purchases of your life. Housing is one of the most powerful examples of this effect in action. When you go apartment hunting or house hunting, you don't see random listings. You're guided, shown options in a specific order. A good agent knows exactly what they're doing. They don't start by showing you the perfect home. They show you something slightly disappointing. Same price range, worse condition, bad layout, loud street, outdated interior. You're not meant to buy it. You're meant to react to it. So when they show you the next place, your standards have shifted. Suddenly, flaws you would have noticed before don't bother you. At least it's not that other place. Your brain relaxes. Your guard drops. Then comes the final option. Slightly above your stated budget. Just a little more. But now it feels justified, even smart. Compared to what you just saw, this feels like a deal. You didn't stretch your budget because you wanted luxury. You stretched it because the comparison made it feel safe. Car dealerships do this with surgical precision. You see an ad for a low starting price. That's the anchor. When you arrive, that version feels stripped down, uncomfortable, missing features you didn't even know you cared about until they were pointed out. Then you're shown the higher trims. One feels too expensive. One feels just close enough. Once you mentally accept the middle price, the jump to the top feels small, manageable, almost silly not to do. Monthly payments blur the reality even further. A few extra dollars per month doesn't feel like thousands over time. So you upgrade again. Heated seats, bigger screen, better sound. You leave feeling satisfied, not realizing you just locked yourself into years of extra expense because a worse option was placed next to the one they wanted you to choose. What makes this especially dangerous is that it doesn't feel manipulative. No one pressured you. No one lied. Everything was technically honest. You were allowed to choose anything you wanted, but the path was built for you. This is why people say things like, "I don't know where my money goes." It goes into perceived value, into small decisions framed as optimizations instead of expenses. You didn't buy more because you're greedy. You bought more because you were afraid of being inefficient, afraid of missing out, afraid of being the person who chose wrong. And this taps into something very old in us. Humans evolved to maximize resources, to avoid waste, to feel safe by securing more than enough. Marketers hijack that instinct and point it directly at your wallet. They create scenarios where the only way to feel smart is to spend more. Buying less starts to feel like losing. That's the core of the trap. The most brutal part is that once you're aware of it, you start noticing how aggressively it's used against the middle class. When income rises slightly, spending rises faster. Not because needs explode, but because the available options push you upward. Better neighborhoods, better plans, better packages, always just a little more, always framed as value. You don't say, "This is expensive." You say, "This is worth it." Those two thoughts are not the same. And here's the quiet shift that ruins people financially over time. You stop thinking in absolute numbers. You stop asking whether something fits your life. You start ranking options inside a system designed by someone else. You're no longer deciding how much to spend. You're deciding which rung of the ladder to stand on, and the ladder only goes up. The real danger of this isn't that companies are evil or manipulative. The danger is that the system works so well that it feels natural. It feels like your idea. You walk away convinced you made a rational, well-researched decision. You don't feel regret, you feel pride. That's why it keeps happening. So how do you protect yourself from something that doesn't feel like a mistake? You don't fight it with willpower. Willpower loses. You fight it by changing how you decide. The first defense is awareness. When you see three options, pause. Ask yourself which one exists only to make another look good. There is almost always an ugly sibling in the lineup. An option that feels pointless, overpriced, underserved. That's not a mistake. That's the decoy. The moment you identify it, the spell weakens. You stop reacting emotionally and start seeing the structure. The second defense is deciding before.